I hadn't been inside a pawn shop in years. Maybe never. But there I was on a Thursday afternoon in late September, standing on the corner of Maple and 6th with 20 minutes to kill before Music Theory 2 and nowhere I actually wanted to be. The sun was low and buttery, turning the storefronts into something softer than they were. But the light stopped at the glass. Inside, through the smudged window, I could see only shadows and the dull glint of things people had given up on. I don't know why I went in. Boredom, maybe. Or that restless feeling I'd been carrying around for months. The one that made me walk loops around campus instead of sitting still, that kept me up at night staring at my phone like someone might finally text me back. I pushed the door open and a bell chimed, thin and lonesome, and the air inside smelled like dust and old leather and something faintly metallic like pennies left too long in a drawer. The place was narrow and crammed. Shelves lined with electronics that didn't work anymore, jewelry under fingerprinted glass, a wall of tools I couldn't name. There was a man behind the counter, older, reading a paperback with the cover torn off. He glanced up when I came in, nodded once, then went back to his book. I was grateful. I didn't want to be spoken to. I just wanted to exist somewhere that wasn't my apartment or a classroom or the coffee shop downstairs where I taught kids how to hold a pick and pretend I still cared about music. I moved through the aisles slowly, letting my eyes drift over things I didn't need. A typewriter, a stack of vinyl records, a camera with a cracked lens. And then I saw it, hanging on the back wall near a rack of winter coats that smelled like mothballs. A guitar, cherry red, acoustic. The finish was dull in places, worn down to the wood. And there was a chip near the base, a divot the size of a quarter. The strap was still attached, frayed and broken at one end, dangling uselessly. I stopped walking. My chest went tight. I knew that guitar. I knew the way the red faded near the sound hole. I knew the scratches along the neck, the ones that looked random but weren't. And I knew, even from where I stood, that if I got close enough I would see the initials carved just below the tuning pegs. Small, crooked, done with a pocket knife one night when we were 16 and stupid and thought we'd be together forever. Ash. Tyson Hale. My hand started shaking before I even realized I'd moved closer. I was standing right in front of it now, close enough to see the sticker he'd pressed onto the body years ago, peeling at the edges, the design so faded I could barely make it out anymore. Some band we'd liked back then. Some name I couldn't remember. But I remembered him. I remembered everything. The shopkeeper looked up again. He closed his book this time, set it on the counter. "You interested in that one?" he asked. His voice was neutral, unassuming, like he hadn't just asked me if I wanted to hold the single object that could unravel me completely. I opened my mouth, closed it, nodded. He came around the counter, lifted the guitar off its hook, and handed it to me like it was nothing. Like it wasn't the weight of 3 years and a broken heart and every song I'd stopped writing the day Tyson left. I took it. The body settled against my ribs, and my left hand found the neck without thinking, fingers curling around it the way they used to. Muscle memory. My thumb brushed over the initials, and I felt something crack open inside me. Something I'd been keeping sealed for so long, I forgot it was even there. It was his. It was really his. I hadn't seen Tyson since the summer after high school. Since the night we played our last gig together at some dive bar downtown. The crowd half drunk and barely listening, but it didn't matter because we had each other. We'd written songs together, sung harmonies that felt like breathing, stayed up until sunrise in his car, parked by the river, talking about the future like it was something we could hold. And then he was gone. No explanation. No goodbye. Just a text 2 weeks before college started that said he needed to figure some things out, that he couldn't do this right now, that he was sorry. I called him. I texted. I left voicemails that got more desperate, and then more angry, and then just sad. He never responded. He left town, left me, left everything we were supposed to be, and he took all the music with him. I tried to move on. I told myself I had. I went to school, studied theory, learned to teach. I dated other people, kissed other boys, woke up in other beds. But none of it stuck. None of it felt real. And after a while, I just stopped trying. Stopped playing. Stopped writing. Music became something I did for money, something I explained to kids who didn't care, and every night I came home to an apartment full of instruments I never touched. But here it was. His guitar. in my hands. The shopkeeper was watching me. "You play?" he asked. "I used to," I said. My voice sounded far away. He nodded. "That one came in last week. Someone dropped it off in a hurry, didn't even haggle. Just wanted it gone." I looked up. "Do you know who?" He shook his head. "No name. Paid cash." I could tell he didn't want to give it up, though. Held on to it for a minute before he handed it over, like he was saying goodbye to something. My throat felt tight. "How much?" He told me. It was less than I expected. I told him I'd take it. He rang me up, and I paid, and he wrapped the guitar in an old blanket, set it carefully in a case that didn't quite fit. The whole time my heart was pounding, my mind racing, trying to piece together how this had happened. Why Tyson's guitar was here. Why he'd left it. Where he was now. I walked out into the golden light with the case in my hand, and I felt like I was carrying a body. Something that used to be alive. Something I wasn't sure I was ready to resurrect. But I couldn't leave it there. I couldn't walk away. Not again. I carried the guitar home, like it might break if I moved too fast. The case bumped against my leg with every step, a rhythm I couldn't ignore, and by the time I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I was out of breath. Not from the walk. From something else. My place was small. A studio above the coffee shop where I worked mornings sometimes, teaching lessons in the back room to kids whose parents paid me $20 an hour to show them basic chords. The apartment came cheap because the espresso machine downstairs started grinding at 5 in the morning and didn't stop until dark. I'd gotten used to it. The noise. The smell of burnt coffee seeping through the floorboards. The way my life had become a series of things I'd gotten used to. I set the case down on the couch and stared at it. The blanket the shopkeeper had wrapped it in was gray and threadbare, and I pulled it away slowly, like unwrapping something fragile. The guitar looked even more worn in the light from my window. The cherry red was duller than I remembered. The chip at the base seemed deeper. But it was still his. Still carried the shape of him somehow, the weight of all the hours he'd spent holding it. I lifted it out, sat down on the floor with it. My fingers found the strings, and I pressed down, testing the tension. It was out of tune, badly. I spent the next 20 minutes adjusting the pegs, listening, turning, listening again. My hands remembered how to do this, even though my mind felt blank. When it was close enough, I played a chord. Just one. A minor. It rang out in the silence of my apartment, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not relief. Not sadness. Something in between. I looked around the room. My life reflected back at me. A futon that doubled as a couch. A desk covered in sheet music I hadn't written on in months. A keyboard in the corner, dusty. A bass propped against the wall. Strings I hadn't changed in over a year. There were posters on the walls from shows I'd been to, bands I used to care about, and a corkboard covered in photos I didn't look at anymore. Most of them were from high school. Most of them had Tyson in them. I'd built this life deliberately. Music theory degree. Teaching gigs. Enough money to get by. A routine that didn't ask too much of me. I studied composition, but didn't compose. I taught performance, but didn't perform. I talked about passion and expression and finding your voice, and every word felt like a lie because I'd lost mine the day he left. People asked me sometimes why I didn't play out anymore, why I didn't write. I told them I was busy, told them I was focusing on school, on teaching, on building something stable. And maybe that was part of it. But the truth was simpler and harder to say. I couldn't write without him. Every melody felt empty. Every lyric felt like it was reaching for someone who wasn't there. Tyson and I had been a unit. We met freshman year of high school in the music room during lunch, both of us hiding from the cafeteria, both of us carrying guitars we didn't quite know how to play yet. We started jamming, then writing, then performing. By junior year, we were playing open mics every weekend, tiny venues that smelled like beer and sweat, crowds that barely listened. But we didn't care. We had each other. And somewhere in the middle of all that music, I fell in love with him. I didn't mean to. Or maybe I did. Maybe I'd been in love with him from the first time I heard him sing. His voice was softer than mine, higher, and it wrapped around my harmonies like they were made to fit together. We wrote songs about loneliness and longing, about small towns and big dreams, and we never said out loud that we were writing about us. But we were. Every word. The first time he kissed me, we were standing under the bridge near his house. It was 2 in the morning, and we just finished a set, at some dive bar. We were buzzed on adrenaline and cheap beer someone had bought us. And he turned to me in the dark and said he didn't want to go home yet. So we walked, and then we stopped. And then his mouth was on mine, and the world went quiet. We spent the rest of senior year like that. Secret and open all at once. Playing music, writing songs, falling asleep in the back of his car. We didn't talk about the future much. Didn't need to. It felt inevitable. We'd go to college together, keep playing, keep writing. We make something real. And then graduation came. And summer. And he started pulling away. Stopped returning my calls as quickly. Canceled plans. Seemed distant even when we were sitting next to each other. I asked him what was wrong. He said he was fine. Said he was just stressed about leaving, about change, about everything. Then he sent that text. And he was gone. I spent months trying to understand it. Replaying every conversation, every moment, looking for the crack where it all fell apart. But there wasn't one. Or maybe there were 100, and I just hadn't been paying attention. Either way, the result was the same. He left. I stayed. And the music died with him. I put the guitar down, leaned back against the couch. My apartment felt too quiet suddenly, like the walls were closing in. But I could still feel the strings under my fingers. Still hear the chord hanging in the air. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted to play again. I cleaned the guitar the next morning. Took a soft cloth and wiped down every inch of it, careful around the scratches and the worn places where the finish had rubbed away. I polished the frets, tightened the tuning pegs, changed the strings, even though the old ones still had some life left in them. I needed to do something with my hands, needed to feel useful. When it was clean and rest-strung and tuned properly, I sat on the floor again and played. Not anything complete, just fragments. Chord progressions we used to mess around with. The opening bars of songs we never finished. My fingers moved slower than they used to, clumsier, but they remembered. The muscle memory was still there, buried under 3 years of silence. I played the first few measures of the song we wrote together junior year. The one about leaving, about wanting to run and wanting to stay and not knowing which one mattered more. We performed it twice. Once at a coffee shop open mic. Once at that dive bar the night he kissed me. I could still hear his harmony in my head, the way his voice lifted above mine on the chorus, delicate and certain. My hand started shaking halfway through. I stopped playing, set the guitar down, pressed my palms against my eyes. I told myself I was being ridiculous. It was just a guitar, just an object. It didn't mean anything except what I decided it meant. And I could decide it meant nothing. I could sell it, give it away, put it in the closet, and forget about it. I didn't know Tyson anything. Didn't know his memory or his absence or whatever ghost I'd been carrying around for 3 years. But I couldn't let it go. And I hated myself for it. I spent the weekend playing, relearning songs, writing fragments that went nowhere. On Sunday night, I pulled out my phone and stared at it for 20 minutes before I finally opened my messages and scrolled back. Way back, to the last text he'd sent me. It was dated August 14th, 3 years ago, 2 weeks before college started. Hey, I'm sorry. I just need to figure some things out. I can't do this right now. I hope you understand. I'm really sorry. I'd read it 1,000 times. Memorized every word, every piece of punctuation, looking for subtext that wasn't there. I'd responded immediately. Called him. Left voicemails. Sent more texts. What things? What are you talking about? Please just talk to me. Tyson, please. Nothing. I closed the messages. Opened my contacts. Scrolled to his name. The number was probably disconnected by now. He'd probably changed it. Probably didn't want to be found. I put my phone down. Picked up the guitar instead. On Monday, I went to my afternoon shift at the coffee shop. Taught 3 kids, back to back, the same basic chords I'd been teaching for months. Smiled when I was supposed to. Nodded encouragement. Told them they were doing great. The whole time I was thinking about the guitar at home, about Tyson, about the way everything felt unfinished. After my last lesson, I went to the counter and ordered a coffee I didn't want. The barista was a girl named Maya who went to the community college nearby. She was friendly in that effortless way some people are, always smiling, always asking how my day was going like she actually cared. She handed me the coffee and leaned against the counter. You seem distracted, she said. I shrugged. Just tired. She nodded, but didn't look convinced. You know, my roommate works at that record store on 4th, the one that does live music sometimes. She said they're looking for people to play there. Open mic type thing. You should check it out. I'm not really performing right now, I said. She tilted her head. Why not? You're a musician. I used to be, I said. Then I took my coffee and left before she could ask anything else. But her words stuck with me, played on a loop in my head while I walk home. You're a musician. Like it was that simple. Like it was just a fact about me and not something I'd lost. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the guitar, about where it came from. The shopkeeper said someone had brought it in a week ago, dropped it off in a hurry, didn't even haggle. Someone who didn't want it anymore, or couldn't keep it. I thought about Tyson, wondered where he'd gone, if he was okay, if he ever thought about me. Around 2 in the morning, I gave in. I got out of bed and opened my laptop and started searching. Social media, old mutual friends, anything. Most of his accounts were deleted or dormant. No new posts, no photos, like he'd erased himself. But then I found something. A comment on an old friend's page from 6 months ago. Someone named Jeremy Liu, a guy we'd both known in high school. He'd posted a photo from some party, and Tyson had commented. Just a single word. Missed this. I clicked on Jeremy's profile, sent him a message. Hey, it's Seth Carver. I know this is random, but do you know how I can get in touch with Tyson Hale? I didn't expect a response, but 20 minutes later my phone buzzed. Jeremy. Holy shit, Seth. Yeah, man. He's actually back in town. Has been for a few weeks. He's working at that gas station across the river, the one near the old bridge. Night shifts, I think. I stared at the message. Read it 3 times. Tyson was here, in town, close enough to find. I set my phone down, looked at the guitar leaning against the wall. I didn't go that night, or the next. I just kept playing, kept thinking, kept holding onto the weight of knowing he was near and not knowing what to do about it. But the guitar stayed close, like it was waiting for something, like it knew this wasn't over yet. I went on a Thursday night, 2 weeks after I found the guitar. 2 weeks of playing it every day, of thinking about Tyson, of telling myself I wouldn't go, and then lying awake knowing I would. It was raining. Not hard, but steady, the kind that comes in sideways and soaks through your jacket before you realize you're wet. I drove across the river with the guitar in its case on the passenger seat like I needed it there, like I needed proof. The gas station was the only thing lit up for miles, fluorescent and harsh against the dark, surrounded by empty parking lot and the woods beyond. I pulled in and sat in my car for 10 minutes, engine running, wipers going, trying to figure out what I was going to say. I almost left 3 times, but then I saw him through the window, behind the counter, counting something, his head down, his hair longer than it used to be. Same posture, same way of holding his shoulders, like he was trying not to take up too much space. I turned off the engine, grabbed the case, got out before I could change my mind. The bell above the door chimed when I walked in, and he looked up. His eyes met mine, and everything stopped. His hands froze mid-motion. His mouth opened slightly, like he was going to say something, but nothing came out. I stood there dripping rainwater onto the linoleum, holding the guitar case, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he said my name. Seth. It was barely a whisper, like he wasn't sure I was real. I set the case down on the counter between us, unzipped it, opened it. The guitar gleamed under the fluorescent lights, clean and rest-strung in tune. He stared at it, then at me. You found it, he said. You left it behind, I said. His face did something complicated. Grief and shame and something else I couldn't name. He reached out slowly, like he was asking permission, and when I didn't stop him, he touched the neck of the guitar. His fingers traced the initials carved there. The ones he'd made. The ones that used to mean something. I didn't know if he'd want it back, he said quietly. I don't, I said, but I needed to know why you gave it up. He pulled his hand back, looked at me. His eyes were darker than I remembered. Tired. There were lines around them that hadn't been there before, and his face was thinner, sharper. He looked older, or maybe just more worn. I had to, he said. I couldn't keep carrying it around. It's a guitar, Tyson, not a body. He flinched. I know. Then why, I said. Why did you leave it? Why did you leave me? He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were wet. I didn't think I had a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not when you hate yourself, he said. Not when you wake up every day feeling like you're suffocating. Not when you can't be what people need you to be. I felt something crack in my chest. What are you talking about? He shook his head, looked away. After graduation, everything fell apart. My parents found out about us. About me. They didn't take it well. They said things. Did things. I had to leave. I had to get out. And I couldn't drag you into that. I couldn't let you watch me fall apart. You could have told me, I said. My voice was shaking now. You could have let me help. I didn't want your help, Seth. I didn't want your pity. I didn't want you to see me like that. So you just disappeared. Yes, he said. And I hated myself for it every single day. The rain hammered against the windows. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere in the back, a refrigerator hummed. I thought you didn't care, I said. I thought I didn't matter. He looked at me, then really looked at me, and his expression broke. You mattered more than anything. That's why I had to go. I couldn't let you waste your life on someone who was drowning. I wasn't wasting anything, I said. I loved you. The words hung between us. Past tense. And I saw him register it. Saw the hurt flash across his face. I loved you too, he said. I still do. I just stopped believing I deserved it. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to respond to 3 years of silence and regret compressed into one sentence. The bell above the door chimed again. A customer, an older man in a trucker hat who nodded at us and headed toward the back for coffee. Tyson straightened, wiped his eyes quickly, tried to compose himself. I should go, I said. Wait, Tyson said. He looked at me desperately. Do you need a ride? What? My shift ends in 20 minutes. Do you need a ride? Home. Anywhere. I stared at him. At this boy I used to know. This man I didn't anymore. At the vulnerability in his face. The hope. The fear. I could have said no. Could have picked up the guitar and left and never come back. Could have let this be the ending. But I didn't. Okay, I said. I'll wait. He nodded. Something like relief washed over his face. Okay. I went back to my car. Sat in the driver's seat with the rain coming down and the guitar beside me. 20 minutes felt like forever. Felt like no time at all. When he came out, he was wearing a denim jacket that was too thin for the weather. He climbed into the passenger seat and pulled the door shut, and we sat there for a moment, not speaking. Then I started the engine. Where am I taking you? I asked. He gave me an address on the east side. I drove. The wipers beat rhythm against the windshield. The radio was off. Neither of us spoke. But halfway there, he said, I'm sorry. For everything. I know, I said. And I did. I knew. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. We didn't talk much after that night. Not right away. But something had shifted. Some door had opened that neither of us knew how to close. He texted me 3 days later. Just checking in. Making sure you're okay. I stared at the message for an hour before I responded. I'm fine. You? Been better. Been worse. It wasn't much. But it was something. We started slow. Careful. Like we were learning each other again from a distance. He'd text me about his shift. I'd tell him about a student who finally nailed a bar chord. Small things. Safe things. Nothing that required us to go deeper than the surface. But then he asked if I wanted to get coffee. And I said yes. We met at a diner on the edge of town, the kind that served breakfast all day and had booths with cracked vinyl seats. It was late afternoon, and the place was nearly empty. We sat across from each other and ordered coffee we didn't drink and pretended this was normal. He looked better than he had that night at the gas station. Less tired, or maybe just less caught off guard. He'd cut his hair a little. Shaved. He was wearing a flannel shirt I didn't recognize, and he kept fidgeting with the sleeve. How long have you been back? I asked. About a month, he said. Maybe a little more. I've been trying to get my feet under me. Where did you go? Everywhere, he said. Nowhere. I spent a year in Portland. Worked construction. Lived in a house with 6 other people. Then I went to Denver for a while. Then nowhere specific. Just moved around. Crashed on couches. Worked whatever jobs I could find. And now you're here. He nodded. Stared into his coffee. I didn't plan on coming back. But I ran out of places to run. Why the gas station? It was hiring, he said. And it's night shift. I don't have to see many people. Don't have to explain myself. I wanted to ask him more. Wanted to ask about his parents, about what happened, about the 3 years in between. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I said, Are you playing at all? He shook his head. Not really. I tried a few times. But it didn't feel right without you. The words settled between us. Heavy and true. I've been playing again, I said. Since I found the guitar. It's the first time in years. He looked up. What changed? You, I said. Finding your guitar. It reminded me why I started in the first place. He didn't say anything, just looked at me with those tired, dark eyes, and I saw something break open in his face. We started spending time together after that. Not every day, but enough. Late-night drives with nowhere to go. Sitting in parking lots with the engine running and the heat on, talking until the sun came up. We'd share headphones, passing one earbud back and forth, listening to songs we used to love. And slowly, carefully, we started playing again. It happened one night at my apartment. He'd come over after his shift, and we were sitting on the floor drinking cheap beer and not saying much. The guitar was leaning against the wall, and he kept glancing at it, like he wanted to reach for it, but didn't know if he should. Finally, I said, "You want to play something?" He hesitated, then nodded. I handed him the guitar. He held it like it was fragile, like it might disappear if he wasn't careful. He tuned it slightly, adjusting the high E string, and then he played. Just a few chords, soft and tentative. The opening to a song we'd written senior year. I closed my eyes and listened. His playing was different now. Slower, more deliberate, like he was feeling his way through it instead of just remembering. When he stopped, I opened my eyes. He was looking at me. "Your turn," he said. I took the guitar, played the next part, the verse we'd worked on together. My voice felt rusty when I started singing, but it smoothed out after a few lines. And then he joined in. His harmony, that same soft, high voice that had always wrapped around mine like it belonged there. We played through the whole song, mistakes and all, and when we finished we just sat there in the silence, letting it settle. That was the first time it felt like we might be okay. A few nights later, he showed up with a notebook. Old and worn, the cover stained with coffee rings. He handed it to me without saying anything. I opened it. Inside were pages and pages of lyrics. Songs we'd started and never finished. Melodies sketched out in his messy handwriting. Words crossed out and rewritten. Margins filled with notes. "You kept all of this," I said. "I couldn't let it go," he said. "You were the only one who ever saw what I was trying to say. The only one who understood." My throat tightened. I flipped through the pages, recognizing fragments, half-formed ideas we'd played with years ago. Some of them I'd forgotten. Some of them I remembered too well. I stopped on a page near the end. A song called Unfinished. The lyrics were incomplete. The melody only half-sketched. But I could see where it was trying to go. "We never finished this one," I said. "I know," he said. "I didn't know how to without you." I looked up at him. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Vulnerable and open and terrified. "We could finish it now," I said. He swallowed hard. Yeah. So we did. We sat on the floor with the guitar between us, and we worked through the melody. Added lines. Changed chords. His leg pressed against mine, and our hands brushed when we reached for the notebook at the same time, and neither of us pulled away. And later, when the song was closer to whole, when we'd played it through twice and it finally felt right, he looked at me and said, "I never stopped loving you. I just stopped believing I deserved to." I set the guitar down. My hands were shaking. "You broke my heart," I said. "I know," he said. "Then let me help put it back together." I didn't answer right away. Just looked at him, at the boy I'd loved, at the man he'd become, at all the hurt and hope tangled up between us. Then I said, "Okay." The email came on a Tuesday morning. I almost deleted it thinking it was spam. It was from a venue downtown, the Lighthouse, a small place with a stage barely big enough for 3 people, known for hosting local artists and open mics. They'd heard I used to perform. Someone had recommended me. They had a slot open Friday night if I was interested. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. I hadn't performed in front of people in over 3 years. Hadn't even considered it. The thought alone made my chest tight, made my hands start sweating. I called Tyson. He picked up on the 3rd ring, his voice thick with sleep. It was noon, but he'd worked until 6 that morning. "Did I wake you?" I asked. "It's fine," he said. "What's going on?" I told him about the email, about the offer, about how I couldn't do it. "Why not?" he said. "Because I can't," I said. "I don't perform anymore. I don't have anything to say." "That's not true." "It is," I said. "I'm not ready." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I come over?" He showed up an hour later with coffee and the notebook. We sat on my floor, the same spot we always sat, and he opened it to the song we'd finished. unfinished. The one that was whole now. The one that felt true. Play this, he said. I can't play that in front of people. Why not? Because it's ours, I said. Because it's about us. About everything that happened. So he said, that's what makes it real. That's what people need to hear. I don't know if I can. He reached out and took my hand. His fingers were warm and calloused and familiar. You can, he said. I know you can. You just have to stop being afraid of what it means. I looked at him, at the certainty in his face, at the way he believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. What if I fail, I said. Then you fail, he said. But at least you tried. At least you let yourself feel something again. I didn't respond right away. Just sat there holding his hand, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down on me. Finally, I said, I'll think about it. He smiled. That's all I'm asking. I thought about it for 2 days. Thought about nothing else. Played the song over and over until my fingers ached. Imagine standing on a stage, lights in my eyes, people watching. Imagine my voice cracking. Imagine forgetting the words. Imagine the silence after the polite applause, the confirmation that I wasn't good enough anymore. On Thursday night, I sent the email. Told them no. Told them I appreciated the offer, but I wasn't available. I felt relief and regret in equal measure. But then Tyson showed up at my apartment unannounced. He didn't knock, just let himself in. I'd given him a key 2 weeks earlier without really thinking about what it meant. He stood in my doorway looking at me. You said no, he said. It wasn't a question. I did, I said. Why? Because I'm scared. Of what? Of everything, I said. Of being up there alone. Of not being good enough. Of people seeing me fail. You won't be alone, he said. I will be. It's just me up there. Then let me come with you, he said. I stared at him. What? Let me come with you, he repeated. We'll play together. Like we used to. You and me. Tyson, you don't perform anymore. Neither do you, he said. But maybe it's time we both started again. I didn't know what to say. The idea of it, of us on stage together, felt impossible and inevitable all at once. I called the venue. They said the slot was still open. They said I could bring someone if I wanted. They said Friday at 9. I said yes before I could stop myself. The next day was a blur. We practiced in my apartment until my neighbors started banging on the walls. Ran through the song a dozen times. Fixed a bridge that wasn't working. Changed a lyric. Then changed it back. Tyson's voice blended with mine the way it always had. And for moments at a time, I forgot to be afraid. But then Friday came and the fear returned. I spent the whole day nauseous. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sit still. Kept picking up the guitar and putting it down again. Tyson texted me every hour. You okay? We got this. See you tonight. By the time we were supposed to leave, I was shaking. I stood in my apartment staring at the guitar case, unable to move. Tyson knocked on my door at 8:30. I let him in. He took one look at me and knew. We don't have to do this, he said. Yes, we do, I said. No, he said. We don't. If you're not ready, we can walk away. Nobody's forcing us. But I could see in his face that he wanted to, that he needed to, that this mattered to him in ways I couldn't fully understand. I picked up the guitar case. My hands were trembling. I can't do this, I said. He stepped closer, placed his hands on my shoulders, looked me in the eyes. Play what's real, he said. That's all you ever had to do. That's all anyone can ask. I took a breath, then another. Okay, I said. We drove to the venue in silence. Parked in the back. Walked through the side entrance. The stage manager met us, ran through the sound check, told us we had 15 minutes. We stood backstage in the narrow hallway that smelled like old wood and beer. I could hear the murmur of the crowd. Could feel the weight of the guitar in my hands. Could feel my heart hammering against my ribs. Tyson touched my arm. Hey, he said. Look at me. I did. You're going to be amazing, he said. The stage manager called our names. We walked out into the lights. The crowd noise dimmed. I could barely see past the first row. Could barely breathe. I sat on the stool they'd set up. Adjusted the microphone. Tyson stood beside me, just out of the spotlight, his presence steadying me. I started playing. The opening chords. My fingers found their place. And then I began to sing. My voice cracked on the first line. I heard it happen, felt it catch in my throat, and for a second I thought I'd lose it completely. But then Tyson's harmony came in soft and sure, lifting me up the way it always had, and I steadied. I kept playing, kept singing. The song we'd written together, the one we'd finished in my apartment on the floor with our legs touching and our hearts open. The one about leaving and staying and not knowing which hurt more. The one about loving someone and losing them and finding them again. The crowd was quiet. I could feel them listening, could feel the weight of their attention. But I stopped trying to see them, stopped trying to be perfect. I just played what was real, the way Tyson had told me to. Halfway through the second verse, my voice found its strength. The words came easier. The melody felt natural again, like breathing. And when we reached the chorus, when our voices blended together the way they used to, I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been broken for 3 years, starting to mend. I looked over at Tyson. He was watching me, his eyes bright in the stage lights, and he was smiling. Not the sad, tired smile I'd seen at the gas station. A real one, full and unguarded. We played the bridge, the part we'd rewritten a dozen times before we got it right. The part about second chances and forgiveness and learning to believe in yourself again. Tyson's voice rose above mine, delicate and clear, and I let it carry me. When we reached the final chorus, I closed my eyes, felt the guitar under my hands, felt the words leaving my mouth, felt the presence of Tyson beside me, solid and real. And then it was over. The last chord rang out into silence. I opened my eyes. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then the applause started, scattered at first, then building. People stood. I could see them now, their faces, their hands coming together. I could see strangers moved by something we'd made. But I was looking at Tyson, and he was looking at me, and there were tears streaming down his face. We walked off stage together, down the narrow hallway, past the stage manager, who said something I didn't hear, out through the back door into the cool night air. I set the guitar case down, leaned against the brick wall. My hands were still shaking, but it felt different now. Not fear, something else. Relief. Release. Tyson stood across from me. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he said, "You did it." "We did it," I said. He wiped his eyes, laughed a little. "I didn't think I could do that again. Didn't think I deserved to." "You do," I said. "You deserve good things, Tyson. You always did." He looked at me, really looked at me, the way he used to back when we were 17, and everything was simple and possible. "I don't want to run anymore," he said quietly. "I don't want to keep leaving things behind." "Then don't," I said. He stepped closer. "I'm scared," he said. "I'm scared I'll mess this up again. I'm scared I'll hurt you." "You already hurt me," I said, "and I'm still here." He reached out slowly, took my hand. His fingers laced through mine, and I felt the warmth of him, the realness of him. "Let me stay this time," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a promise. I nodded. No more running. He smiled, the real smile, the one I'd been waiting 3 years to see again. Nowhere left to go but here. We went back to my apartment. Didn't talk much on the drive. Just sat in comfortable silence, his hand resting on the console between us where I could reach it if I wanted to. Inside, I set the guitar against the wall. Made coffee, even though it was past midnight. We sat on a couch, the same worn futon that doubled as my bed, and we just existed together for a while. He told me he'd been looking for an apartment. Something small. Something he could afford on his own. He wanted to build something stable. Wanted to prove to himself he could stay. I told him he could crash here until he found a place. Told him I had space. Told him I wanted him around. He said okay. We fell asleep like that. On the couch. His head on my shoulder. The coffee mugs forgotten on the floor. When I woke up, the sun was coming through the window, and he was still there. Still breathing steady against me. Still real. I looked around my apartment. At the guitar leaning against the wall. At the notebook on the coffee table. Pages filled with songs we'd written and songs we'd yet to write. At the sheet music scattered across my desk. At the life I'd built alone that didn't feel so lonely anymore. From somewhere down the hall, I could hear music playing. One of my neighbors. A melody I didn't recognize. Something soft and hopeful. Tyson stirred. Opened his eyes. Looked at me. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I said. He sat up slowly. Stretched. Glanced at the guitar. "We should play today," he said. "Work on something new." "Yeah," I said. "We should." He smiled, then stood and walked to the kitchen. Started making coffee. Moved through my space like he belonged there. Like he'd always belonged there. I stayed on the couch watching him, listening to the coffee maker gurgle, listening to the music from down the hall, listening to the sound of Tyson humming quietly to himself. Our song, the one we'd finished, the one we played last night, the one that was finally whole.